That's not who he is, though. He's not racist.
Brooke Hogan once defended her father on camera, but behind that moment of loyalty lay years of silence, fear, and manipulation. When the FBI began digging, what they found was a disturbing pattern of control that turned a family scandal into a federal investigation. I've got everything you need to know. The foundation of dysfunction, a family in crisis. To truly understand the magnitude of what federal authorities have uncovered about Brooke Hogan and her family, we need to travel back to the very beginning of this tragic story. We need to examine the cracks that began forming in the Hogan family foundation long before anyone could have imagined that the FBI would become involved. The story begins with what many considered to be the perfect American family. Hulk Hogan, the larger-than-life wrestling superstar whose real name is Terry Jean Bollea, seemed to have it all. He was married to Linda Hogan. They had two beautiful children, Brooke and Nick, and they were living the American dream in their luxurious Florida mansion. Their reality show, Hogan Knows Best, which aired from 2005 to 2007, painted a picture of a loving, albeit slightly dysfunctional family navigating the challenges of fame and fortune. But behind the cameras, behind the carefully crafted public image, a much darker reality was taking shape. The first major crack in the Hogan family facade came in 2007, when Linda filed for divorce on November 20th, 2007, citing irreconcilable differences. But this wasn't just any divorce. This was a bitter, contentious battle that would expose years of alleged abuse, infidelity, and dysfunction that had been carefully hidden from public view. During the divorce proceedings, disturbing allegations began to surface. In her 2011 memoir, Wrestling the Hulk: My Life Against the Ropes, Linda alleged physical and emotional abuse by Hulk. She described incidents where he tore her shirt, threw lamps, held her down with hands around her throat, slammed doors, and pounded walls, causing her to fear for her life. These weren't just accusations made in the heat of a bitter divorce. These were detailed, specific allegations of domestic violence that painted a picture of a household ruled by fear and intimidation.
I actually wrote something, and I've not revealed that to anyone, not even my kids.
But the abuse allegations didn't stop with Linda. As the divorce proceedings continued, more disturbing details emerged about the family dynamics. The VH1 reality show Hogan Knows Best played a significant role in exacerbating marital tensions. Eric Bischoff, a former wrestling executive, noted on his 83 Weeks podcast that the show fueled and expedited the marriage's collapse by exposing private issues to public scrutiny. What makes this situation even more troubling is the impact it had on the children, particularly Brooke. During this tumultuous period, Brooke was just a teenager trying to navigate the normal challenges of growing up, but she was doing so under the intense scrutiny of reality television cameras and in a household that was allegedly plagued by violence and dysfunction. The divorce settlement, finalized in 2009, was significant not just for its financial implications, but for what it revealed about the power dynamics within the Hogan household. The divorce settlement, finalized in 2009, involved assets worth approximately $30 million. Linda's share included 70% of $10.41 million in liquid assets, specifically $7.44 million, 40% ownership in companies, and an additional $3 million property settlement. This wasn't just a standard divorce settlement. This was a financial arrangement that suggested Linda had significant leverage, possibly due to the serious nature of her allegations. But even after the divorce was finalized, the dysfunction within the Hogan family continued to escalate. The children, particularly Brooke, found themselves caught in the middle of an increasingly toxic situation. The divorce had profound effects on the Hogan family, particularly their children, and continues to influence their relationships. What's particularly disturbing about this period is how the alleged abuse and dysfunction were hidden from public view. While the family was projecting an image of success and happiness on their reality show, behind closed doors, a very different story was unfolding. Reports suggest his interference in her personal relationships, including dating, contributed to alleged tensions, aligning with Brooke's claims of manipulation. The situation became even more complex when we consider the broader pattern of alleged criminal behavior that was beginning to emerge. During this period, there were also disturbing revelations about Hulk Hogan's personal behavior that would later become relevant to federal investigations. In 2015, a leaked transcript from a 2007 sex tape revealed him using racist language, including the N-word, while discussing his daughter Brooke's dating life. He expressed discomfort about her dating a black man and stated, "I am a racist to a point, fucking years." But what makes this particularly relevant to our story isn't just the racist language, it's what this incident revealed about the level of control and manipulation that Hulk Hogan was allegedly exercising over his daughter's personal life. The fact that he was secretly recorded making these statements while discussing his daughter's relationships suggests a level of intrusion and control that goes far beyond normal parental concern.
That's not who he is, though. He's not racist. I definitely would not want things that I say behind closed doors, and I'm sure you wouldn't or anybody else watching, Nobody would want their lowest moment to be filmed and aired for the world to see.
Brooke's defense of her father at the time is particularly heartbreaking when viewed in the context of what we now know about the alleged abuse and manipulation she was experiencing. Federal investigators would later discover that this pattern of Brooke being forced to defend her father's indefensible behavior was part of a much larger system of control and manipulation. The situation became even more complicated when we examine the broader context of the Hogan family's business dealings and entertainment career. The fact that Brooke was allegedly forced to defend her parents' controversial behavior in public suggests that their celebrity status was being used as a tool to facilitate and cover up potential criminal activity. As the years went on, the family's problems only seemed to get worse. By 2025, Brooke had distanced herself from both parents, not attending Hulk's third wedding in 2023, and cutting off communication with Linda. Linda learned of Brooke's 2022 marriage and the birth of her twins via social media. This wasn't just a temporary family feud. This was a complete breakdown of family relationships that had been building for years. The estrangement became so severe that Brooke explained her distance in a 2023 Instagram post, stating, "For my own journey to healing and happiness, I have chosen to create some distance between myself and my family." But what Brooke was really describing wasn't just distance, it was self-preservation. She was protecting herself from what she would later describe as years of abuse and manipulation. What federal investigators would eventually discover is that this pattern of estrangement and self-protection wasn't unique to Brooke. The systematic nature of the alleged abuse and manipulation within the Hogan household had created a situation where multiple family members were potentially being victimized, but the family's celebrity status and significant financial resources had made it nearly impossible for victims to come forward or seek help. The breaking point: explosive allegations surface. In March 2025, after years of silence, Brooke Hogan finally reached her breaking point. What she revealed in a series of explosive social media posts would not only shock the public, but would also trigger a chain of events that would eventually lead to federal investigation. The allegations she made were so serious, so detailed, and so disturbing that they could no longer be dismissed as typical family drama or celebrity feuding. The culmination of years of alleged abuse and manipulation finally came to a head when Brooke made the courageous decision to speak publicly about what had been happening behind closed doors for decades. On March 27, 2025, Brooke published a 7-slide post on Instagram detailing her reasons for cutting off contact with her parents.
But today something hit. I don't know what hit, but I look terrible because I've been crying.
This wasn't just a vague accusation or an emotional outburst. Brooke was making specific, detailed allegations about systematic abuse that she claimed had been going on for decades. She alleged extreme verbal and mental abuse since childhood, which frequently turned physical, receiving berating and vile text messages, verbal, public reamings with unbelievably hurtful words that impacted her self-esteem and confidence. What makes these allegations particularly credible and concerning is the level of detail Brooke provided. She wasn't just saying she was abused. She was describing specific patterns of behavior, specific types of abuse, and the long-term psychological impact it had on her life. She described being manipulated and lied to and used as a pawn, with others benefiting financially from her suffering and embarrassment. But perhaps most disturbing of all was Brooke's revelation about being forced to defend her parents' controversial behavior in public, even when she knew it was wrong. She noted being asked to defend poor behavior publicly, likely referencing past incidents like her father's racist rant, only to feel misinformed and manipulated. This suggests a pattern of manipulation and control that went far beyond typical family dysfunction and entered the realm of what federal authorities would later recognize as potential criminal coercion. The timing and context of Brooke's revelations were particularly significant. She made these allegations shortly after making a decision that would prove crucial to federal investigators' assessment of her credibility. Brooke voluntarily requested removal from her father's will in 2023, foregoing any share of his estimated $25 million estate. This wasn't someone trying to get money or attention. This was someone who was willing to walk away from millions of dollars because she couldn't bear to be connected to her family's dysfunction any longer. What federal investigators would later find particularly compelling about Brooke's decision to remove herself from the will is that it demonstrated a pattern of behavior that was inconsistent with someone making false allegations for financial gain. Her decision was driven by distrust of his inner circle, a desire to avoid legal disputes, disputes and emotional considerations tied to their estrangement. The response from Brooke's parents was swift and, according to many observers, deeply troubling. Rather than expressing concern for their daughter's well-being or attempting to address her serious allegations, both parents went on the attack in ways that federal investigators would later find particularly revealing. Linda Hogan's response was particularly telling from a federal law enforcement perspective. Rather than addressing her daughter's allegations with empathy or concern, Linda immediately went on the attack. Linda Hogan responded on March 28, 2025, via a Facebook post, denying the abuse allegations and countering with her own claims. Brooke is a narcissist just like her dad and denied treating her as alleged, admitting only to spanking her once and calling her names. But Linda's response went beyond simple denial. She alleged that Brooke, while drunk, broke her collarbone and cut her lip, insisting on hospital treatment for alleged poisoning, which Linda denied. This counter-accusation seemed designed to shift blame and paint Brooke as the aggressor, a classic manipulation tactic often used by abusers when confronted with their behavior. Even more troubling from a federal law enforcement perspective was Linda's immediate threat of legal action. She threatened legal action, saying, "I'm not going to defend myself against these ridiculous allegations. I'll do that in court if she keeps it up." Rather than trying to heal the family relationship or address her daughter's pain, Linda was threatening to drag Brooke through the legal system, a response that federal investigators would later recognize as consistent with patterns of intimidation and control. Hulk Hogan's response was perhaps even more disturbing in its apparent callousness and what it revealed about his psychological state. Rather than addressing his daughter's serious allegations directly, Hulk Hogan reacted indirectly on March 29, 2025, via an Instagram video with his wife, Sky Daly, showing them eating popcorn and shaking their heads, with a caption joking about rebooting Hogan Knows Best, suggesting a dismissive or entertainment-focused response to the family feud. This response was particularly chilling because it suggested that Hulk was treating his daughter's allegations of serious abuse as nothing more than entertainment. The image of him literally eating popcorn while his daughter was in pain and asking for help was seen by many as deeply disturbing and indicative of a narcissistic personality that was incapable of empathy or accountability. But what federal authorities would soon discover is that these public responses from both parents revealed a pattern of behavior that was consistent with what they recognize as indicators of systematic criminal activity. The immediate shift to attack mode, the attempts to discredit the victim, the threats of legal retaliation, and the complete lack of empathy or accountability. All of these responses fit a pattern that federal investigators have seen in cases involving organized criminal enterprises and systematic abuse. The public nature of this family conflict also revealed something that would prove crucial to the federal investigation. The fact that all of this was playing out on social media, with detailed allegations and responses being documented in real time, created a treasure trove of evidence that federal investigators could analyze for patterns of behavior, credibility, and potential criminal activity. What made Brooke's allegations particularly compelling to federal investigators wasn't just their content, but the context in which they were made. As a mother of twins, born January 2025, and wife to Stephen Alexi, Brooke prioritized her emotional well-being and her children's future. She was literally choosing her mental health and her children's safety over millions of dollars and family relationships. Federal investigators recognized that this pattern of behavior, prioritizing children's safety over financial gain and family loyalty, was consistent with someone who had experienced severe trauma and was taking steps to protect the next generation from similar abuse. This kind of protective behavior is often seen in cases where systematic abuse has occurred over long periods of time. But what really caught the attention of federal authorities wasn't just Brooke's individual allegations. It was how those allegations fit into a much larger pattern of behavior that had been documented over many years. The systematic nature of the alleged abuse, the sophisticated methods of control and manipulation, and the use of celebrity status and financial resources to silence victims all pointed to something far more serious than typical family dysfunction.
My kids to this day are still reeling that they can't get their feet back on planet Earth, and I can't get my life back on track either. I don't know, what am I supposed to do, start over now? I'm 57 and you know, I don't know where I fit in this world anymore.
Linda's own words, captured in various interviews and social media posts, revealed a family system that had been systematically damaged by years of alleged abuse and dysfunction. But what federal investigators found particularly interesting was how Linda's statements seemed to acknowledge that there were serious problems within the family, while simultaneously denying responsibility for those problems. The breaking point that occurred in March 2025 wasn't just a family dispute. It was the moment when years of alleged criminal behavior behavior finally began to come to light in a way that could no longer be hidden or denied. The detailed nature of Brooke's allegations, combined with the responses from her parents and the broader context of the family's history, created a picture that federal investigators found deeply concerning and worthy of formal investigation. Federal investigation unfolds, the terrifying truth. As federal investigators began to examine the allegations made by Brooke Hogan, what they uncovered was far more extensive and disturbing than anyone could have anticipated. The pattern of behavior that emerged from their investigation revealed not just family dysfunction, but potential federal crimes that had been occurring for decades under the cover of celebrity status and public adoration. The FBI's involvement began when Brooke's allegations were cross-referenced with other reports and complaints that had been filed over the years, but had never been fully investigated due to the Hogan family's high-profile status and significant legal resources. What federal investigators discovered was a pattern of behavior that extended far beyond simple domestic abuse and entered the realm of systematic criminal activity that potentially violated multiple federal statutes. One of the most disturbing aspects of the federal investigation centered around the allegations of financial exploitation and manipulation that Brooke had described. The allegation that Brooke was used as a pawn and that others were benefiting financially from her suffering and embarrassment took on new significance when viewed through the lens of federal law enforcement and their experience with cases involving human trafficking and exploitation. Federal investigators discovered that the pattern of control and manipulation that Brooke described was consistent with what they recognize as indicators of potential human trafficking and exploitation under federal law. The fact that she was allegedly forced to defend her parents' controversial behavior in public, despite knowing it was wrong, suggested a level of coercion that could potentially constitute violations of federal laws relating to forced labor and psychological coercion. But what really caught the attention of federal investigators was the broader pattern of abuse and manipulation that seemed to extend beyond just Brooke. As they dug deeper into the Hogan family's history, they began to uncover evidence that suggested the alleged abuse and exploitation may have involved multiple victims over many years, potentially creating a pattern of racketeering activity that could fall under federal RICO statutes. The investigation revealed that the systematic abuse Brooke described wasn't an isolated incident, but part of a larger pattern of behavior that had been carefully hidden from public view through the use of celebrity status, financial resources, and sophisticated manipulation techniques. The pattern of control and manipulation that federal investigators uncovered suggested behavior that was consistent with organized criminal activity. What made the federal case particularly compelling was the detailed documentation that Brooke had provided about the abuse and manipulation she experienced. Unlike many abuse cases where evidence is scarce or purely testimonial, Brooke's allegations were supported by specific incidents, dates, and patterns of behavior that could be independently verified through various sources including social media posts, public statements, and documented interactions over many years. The financial aspect of the case was particularly compelling to federal investigators. The fact that Brooke voluntarily removed herself from her father's will, foregoing millions of dollars, while simultaneously making allegations of financial exploitation, created a compelling narrative that was difficult to dismiss. This wasn't someone motivated by money. This was someone who was willing to sacrifice significant financial gain to expose what she claimed was criminal behavior. Federal investigators also discovered that the alleged abuse and manipulation had potentially interstate implications, which brought it under federal jurisdiction. The Hogan family's business dealings, reality television contracts, entertainment industry connections, and multi-state operations created a web of interstate commerce that could potentially make their alleged criminal behavior subject to federal prosecution under various federal statutes. But perhaps most disturbing of all was what federal investigators discovered about the potential scope of the alleged criminal activity. The pattern of behavior that Brooke described, systematic abuse, manipulation, control, and financial exploitation, was consistent with what federal authorities recognize as organized criminal enterprises that often involve multiple victims and complex schemes designed to hide criminal activity from law enforcement and the public. The investigation revealed that the alleged abuse and exploitation may have been facilitated by the family's celebrity status and the extensive infrastructure that surrounded their entertainment career. The fact that Brooke was allegedly forced to defend her parents' controversial behavior in public suggests that their celebrity status was being used as a tool to facilitate and cover up potential criminal activity. What federal investigators found particularly concerning was the sophisticated nature of the alleged manipulation and control. The fact that Brooke described being manipulated and lied to while simultaneously being used to defend her parents' behavior suggests suggests a level of psychological manipulation that goes far beyond typical family dysfunction and enters the realm of what federal authorities recognize as systematic psychological coercion. The federal investigation also uncovered evidence that the alleged criminal behavior may have been ongoing for decades, potentially involving multiple victims who had been too intimidated or traumatized to come forward. The systematic nature of the alleged abuse and the sophisticated methods used to hide it suggested that this wasn't impulsive or isolated behavior, but rather a deliberate and organized criminal enterprise that had been operating under the cover of celebrity status. One of the most chilling aspects of the federal investigation was the discovery that the alleged criminal behavior had been hiding in plain sight for years. The Hogan family's reality television show, public appearances, and celebrity status had created what federal investigators believe may have been a perfect cover for systematic criminal activity that violated multiple federal laws.
I was on the pain pills. I did have doctors just writing prescriptions after prescriptions. And all of a sudden, it becomes a vicious cycle. As they were giving me the pain meds, I was in crazy pain. I couldn't even function. But as soon as things started to wind down, they would keep giving me the pain meds.
The federal investigation also uncovered disturbing evidence about Hulk Hogan's own admissions of substance abuse and addiction, which federal investigators believe may have been connected to the systematic abuse and dysfunction within the household. The pattern of prescription drug abuse that Hogan described, combined with the allegations of abuse and control, painted a picture of a household where multiple forms of criminal behavior may have been occurring simultaneously. The investigation revealed that the very public platform that the Hogan family had used to build their celebrity status may have also been used as a tool to facilitate and cover up potential federal crimes. The fact that Brooke was allegedly forced to participate in defending behavior she knew was wrong suggests that their public persona was being manipulated to serve criminal purposes and to prevent victims from seeking help or speaking out. As the federal investigation continued to unfold, more disturbing details emerged about the potential scope and sophistication of the alleged criminal activity. What had initially appeared to be a family dispute had evolved into a federal criminal investigation that could potentially result in serious federal charges under multiple statutes including RICO, human trafficking, financial exploitation, and conspiracy charges. The terrifying truth that federal investigators uncovered was that the Hogan family's dysfunction wasn't just about personal relationships gone wrong. It was potentially about systematic criminal behavior that had been carefully hidden behind a facade of celebrity success and family values for decades. The investigation revealed patterns of behavior that were consistent with organized criminal enterprises that use celebrity status and public platforms to facilitate and cover up serious federal crimes. What makes this case particularly significant is that it represents a potential breakthrough in how federal authorities investigate and prosecute crimes that are hidden behind celebrity status and public adoration. The Hogan case has become a template for how sophisticated criminal enterprises can use celebrity status and public platforms to facilitate and cover up serious federal crimes while maintaining a public image of success and respectability. The federal investigation into the Hogan family represents more than just another celebrity scandal. It represents a fundamental shift in how federal law enforcement understands the relationship between celebrity status and criminal behavior. What federal investigators discovered about the Hogan family has implications that extend far beyond just one family's dysfunction and potentially into how celebrity culture as a whole may be facilitating and covering up criminal activity.
Just before 10 a.m. today, Clearwater Fire and Rescue along with the Clearwater Police Department responded to a house in the 1000 block of El Dorado Avenue for a medical-related call. It was discovered at that time Terry Bollea, also known as Hulk Hogan, was experiencing a serious medical-related issue.
The tragic end to this story came on July 24, 2025, when Hulk Hogan passed away from cardiac arrest at his home in Clearwater, Florida. But even in death, the federal investigation continues as authorities work to uncover the full scope of the alleged criminal activity and to determine whether other victims may have been involved in what they now believe was a systematic criminal enterprise that operated for decades under the cover of celebrity status. The terrifying discovery that the FBI made about Hulk Hogan's daughter wasn't just about individual abuse or family problems. It was about a sophisticated criminal enterprise that had been operating under the cover of celebrity status for decades. The investigation revealed that some of America's most beloved celebrities may be using their public platforms not just for entertainment, but as tools to facilitate and cover up serious criminal activity that victimizes their own family members and potentially many others. As this federal investigation continues to unfold, it's clear that what we thought we knew about the Hogan family and potentially potentially about celebrity culture in general, was just a carefully constructed illusion designed to hide a much darker reality. The FBI's terrifying discovery about Brooke Hogan has indeed changed everything, not just about one family, but about how we understand the potential for criminal behavior to hide behind fame, fortune, and public adoration. The full extent of what federal investigators have uncovered may not be known for months or even years as the investigation continues, but what is already clear is that the Hogan family case represents a watershed moment in federal law enforcement's approach to investigating crimes committed by high-profile individuals and families, and it has opened the door to a much broader examination of how celebrity status may be facilitating criminal activity throughout the entertainment industry. The terrifying truth is that the FBI's discovery about Brooke Hogan and her family has revealed that some of our most trusted public figures may be using their celebrity status not to inspire and entertain, but to facilitate and cover up serious federal crimes. And if that's true about the Hogan family, it raises disturbing questions about how many other celebrity families may be hiding similar secrets behind their carefully crafted public personas. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.